Yeah, our next topic is disambiguating democratic socialist from Democrat. And this is a big topic, so
Yes.
maybe we should constrain it a bit. I believe this was inspired by something you sent me regarding Mamdani, the new
Yes.
mayor of New York, who identifies as a democratic socialist, the same party identification as Bernie Sanders, and during his election, I know there was a lot of media discourse saying that it was impossible for him to win. He wins. There was more media discourse about him and the president, Donald Trump, having uh, kind of cordial relations. There's a lot going on here, but I think we can dissect this a lot of different ways, however you want to. But there is some meaningful uh, things to be learned from disambiguating democratic socialist from Democrat. And with that, I yield the floor to you, Mr. Brederick.
Yeah. I'll yes, I think he might be just a pure socialist. I don't know if he calls himself a democratic socialist, does he?
So yeah, in the United States, like AOC, Bernie Sanders, Mamdani identify as democratic socialists, which
Okay.
I believe that identification. I'm not a socialism expert, but I've
Mm.
tried to verse myself in the there's
Yeah.
like as many socialists as there are Christian denominations in the United States. It's a very diverse movement, but they
Right.
really want to distance themselves from like the Stalinists,
Right.
like the Soviet Union, which was not democratic, or like the
No.
CCP. So
Right.
democratic socialist insinuates socialism with the, I guess, what's the right word with the mandate of the electorate.
Yeah. So
That is my best understanding of it.
I guess what I would say is what's the difference between these guys and Stalin or them? And the reason I'll say that is because one of the things that actually makes kind of modern liberal democracies actually kind of special is this notion of a constitution. And it's the idea to try to strike a balance between individual rights and those so-called will of the people, because it's been a very common failure mode that the majority will oppress the minority. So then when you have something like the Bill of Rights in the United States Constitution, that explicitly kind of protects the individual or the minority, right? I know somebody's going to jump all over us on a history lesson. Oh, it's all this, that, and the other. I'm talking about right now in today's situation. And I'm also talking about it in a kind of an idealized sense, right? So the idea now that just because you have a majority of 51%, you get to then tell everybody, hey, this is how we're going to completely redistribute all of the wealth of this society, I think is wrong morally. And therefore, I do not see. I'm it's a spectrum. Like I get it. I'm not saying they're running these mass killing camps like Stalin was, but I don't actually see a very large difference. I don't want to support a lot of the lifestyles and behaviors of people around me. And if we start to go into a socialist country, that's exactly what we will do. I already support too much with the
I,
old people. You want us to jump in?
I think you already live in a socialist country, Brederick, and I think
Yeah.
it's actually the uncomfortable truth. This is a hot take, so feel free to contest it. I think the uncomfortable truth is that both the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States, leaving out democratic socialists, are broadly on board with socialist aspects of society.
Yeah.
With Social Security probably being the best example, where you have
I
like it is completely politically infeasible for for a Republican led government to make any changes to Social Security, and that would very much upset their right wing identifying older electorate. And
yeah.
the reason I bring that up is because I think that these terms, socialist, uh, communist, capitalist, these are terms with a lot of inertia from when they
Mhm.
were initially coined. And in that time, they've gone through all sorts of contortions to the point where the terms themselves are kind of reductive to the point of not even being properly explanatory. And
Yeah.
I'm being a little pedantic here, but the reason I say that is because it's really convenient for people to get on TV and be like, these dang socialists, say some representative who,
Right.
Republican or conservative representative who's just voted
Mhm.
over and over for all sorts of types of redistribution, because there are many types of
Right.
redistribution of wealth
Right.
in the United States.
Oh yeah.
I think that is, I don't even know how to say it. It's a little, we need to back up. There's like a reductive battle space of narratives that you need to extract yourself from to be able to properly understand this, because the socialist straw man for the conservatives and the MAGA right-wing racist straw man for the leftists, like, these are reductions for the culture war. And to really understand this stuff, you have to take a step back. That
Yeah.
is my statement, my mildly incoherent statement, or
No, it was
preface to
not.
all of this.
It was not mildly incoherent at all. It was extremely coherent. If someone was listening, and I suggest that if you weren't listening, you go back and you listen to exactly what Don just said, because I completely agree with everything he said. And I think I'm just going to take a very brief pause and actually ask you to explain your background, because I think what you just did was actually illustrate a perfect example of one of your guiding lights and principles for this podcast. I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you be willing to do that for us, Don?
Yeah,
If not,
well,
I can give a tear on this.
my in the briefest of summaries, my background is I studied economics at a prestigious and elite university, with lots
Very
of
elite.
pretense. Very elite university. And a lot of the stuff that I learned was bullshit, in my opinion, of the reductive nature, where the theory did not match the reality. I then proceeded to burn out of the corporate workforce, worked a lot of minimum wage jobs, uh, and have been working as a software engineer ever since. I've read, but since that initial experience in my economics education, where the theory and the terms did not map well to reality, it spurred this curiosity in me regarding terms that were used to understand things, or concepts, conceptual vocabulary, all of that, that is limited and prevents full understanding. So I've done a lot of reading, especially of history, to try to create like an understanding of the world more involved in like case studies. My study of history has been primarily motivated by accumulating case studies to match against the present and to understand the present. There is also like a trend line version of history as well, where you can kind of see the things and how they changed over time. But I think the analogical aspects of my reading of history have been the most valuable. I don't know. Is that kind of what you were aiming for, or looking for?
It's not at all what I was aiming for, but that's okay. I wanted you to explain your background, which you didn't even touch on. So I thought,
Oh, the background of my
yeah, I thought
Plato's
that was as we had discussed
Total
earlier,
failure.
we were. That's
Total
why I was
failure.
like, whatever. If you want, you can give it another take. But
Okay,
I think
you
everything
mean,
you just said makes sense.
you mean
and
what
I
is
liked it.
physically behind me that people can see.
Yeah,
I
sorry, that's what I
understand now.
meant.
That is
Yeah.
what you mean. What is behind me is the allegory of the cave. Plato's allegory of the cave. Let me give some space here. You can kind of see a mattress. Don't ignore the mattress. The allegory of the cave is Plato's example. He was kind of talking about reality. You have these people who know nothing but the cave, and there's a fire, and people hold up symbols. They see the shadows on the wall of the cave. They think that's reality. It's not. It's very applicable now because people create their model of reality by consuming media, whether it's books, oftentimes something on an internet feed, short form video. That those are the shadows on the wall of the cave. And you got to try to get out of the cave to really create a broader understanding, because this stuff is manufactured and intentional to make you think a certain way. And that is relevant to our earlier discussion, because the way the terms socialist and capitalist and conservative, the way all of these terms are used is in a way to get the population to get in certain categories and lines and sides of the culture war to fight with each other. I don't think many of these terms are used in a way that promote true broad understanding. There we go. That's what you meant, right? By background.
Nailed it, man. That's exactly
Perfect.
what I was hoping you were going to say, because I know that's basically your vision and your mission, at least one of the core pillars. And I agree with you. And that is why I also agree with you that a lot of these terms for, this Mamdani, I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly. I'm almost certain,
Mom.
but I'm not.
So like, hi, Mom.
Mom.
Don.
Don.
E.
Mamdani.
Mamdani. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that is actually something I try to do. I've worked with many international people, not that he's international, but I've worked with many international people and many people of different cultures and backgrounds. And like getting somebody's name right is actually kind of a pretty important thing for respect, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So thank you. So Mamdani. Okay. I don't think it matters what he identifies with. I don't care what he wants to call himself. I don't care what he likes to do on his videos. All I care about is the actual policies that he does and the change in the cultural zeitgeist or the milieu of the people around him that he inflicts. I don't think he is a positive force for the country. I think he propagates a victim-based culture and a culture of these issues are solved by government intervention on rent control, or these issues are solved by more money to schools, or these issues are solved by a whole number of his solutions. I have often said, very broadly speaking, people on the left are much better at identifying the issues than people on the right, particularly around justice. But their solutions are almost invariably incorrect. Almost invariably. I mean, take it, for example, rent control. The fact that you think that that's going to be a long-term solution just indicates you have no idea of supply and demand, and you have no idea of second-order effect incentives. And I'm sure we'll go into that all someday, unless you want to go into it right now, Don. I can give a very high-level overview of why it's a disaster, but it picks winners and losers.
Throw out your take on rent control, because I do have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, sure. So let's just take that as one. Let me finish my broader point, and then we'll come right back to rent control. So I agree with you. Like, it's not that he's like a socialist per se or whatever, but like, take for example rent control. I think it's the wrong solution, and I think it validates these feelings that sometimes people and even myself have had from time to time of, oh, it's not fair, and oh, it's just because the government is against me and this, that, and the other. And all we have to do is change the government and change the law, and all this will just get fixed. And it's actually like much broader than that. And actually the solutions are often much simpler than that. Like, okay, for housing, for example, this is a classic supply and demand type problem. This has been well studied. And basically it's this simple, is if there are more people that want to live in an area than there are houses, it's going to cause the price of that housing to go up. It's that simple. So if you artificially take a certain percentage of those houses and just say, okay, we're going to take those off the market and cap the price on those, what you start to do is you start to say, okay, well, the people who live there are never going to leave, because the remaining prices of those houses are going to go up, because you still want to force the same amount of people into a certain geographical area, right? And so that's going to cause a problem, right? So the prices are going to go up and up and up and up and up. You lock a lot of these people into these leases that maybe don't even fit them that well anymore, right? Or these rental properties. It can also be done through property tax kind of like systems, like Prop 13 in California. But basically then what happens is you create kind of these winners and losers. So the winners are the people who got in before the rent cap, right? And they're locked in at their rate. They are insulated from the dynamics around them. In a democracy, they still vote. So they have decision-making power, but they are insulated from the decision consequences that they vote for. So there's many cases in places like New York City where you have very high earners who are not paying much in rent. And then you have people who are younger who cannot even afford to live in those places because they're so expensive and they're making much, much lower money. So as a percentage of their income, they have to pay a lot more. So Mamdani has really kind of captivated those people and said like, oh, like rent is too high. It is too high. There used to be this guy in New York City. The rent's too damn high. Do you remember that guy? And he was hilarious. I mean, that was like his whole thing. And he was right. The problem is the solution is not to do rent control because as we just talked about, that will artificially limit the cost, which then will have major problems on the supply. But then also what can happen, and I'll just say this, and this is the first and only second order example I'll give, although there are many more. If the landlord cannot make more money off that rental place, right? Why would they invest in maintenance to keep it updated? And the short answer is they will not.
Right.
Okay. Unless there's government action taken against them, right? Which is, again, something that Mamdani was saying, oh, we're going to go around, we're going to enforce on all these landlords, all these people, all these, maintenance things. And it's like, okay, I understand that. But like, if you are having a losing venture when it comes to real estate, like a lot of these leases too cannot be broken when you sell the estate, right? So the estate actually becomes a liability. So the owner actually cannot even sell it. So they can't even get out of it. So what you're actually doing is deeply morally wrong, but you've got the power of the vote behind you. He's a Democrat socialist. It's like, no, he's a thug who is maybe not a thug. That's too strong of a word. That's too strong.
There are a lot of there's a lot of thuggery that happened via the government. So it's if
but I mean,
he is or
just,
isn't, it's plausible.
I mean, I'm just saying is like, I think a lot of these people are well-meaning. Like, I don't think he actually understands these issues. Or if he does, then he is a thug. But I don't think a lot of these people actually are that clever. I'll be very honest with you. I think they're really good at making videos and social media videos. I don't think they've ever studied these things seriously. I don't think they've ever read serious books. I don't think they've ever had deep, deep self-reflection where they have to have a coming to Jesus moment, as they would say, not actual literal Jesus, but like what's actually going on here.
Let me clarify something. I do think he is a socialist. I was going to say yes. I think he is a socialist. I was just trying to say a few minutes ago that there are many types of socialists. But generally, my general understanding is a socialist wants to use the power of the state to make, to bring the floor of society up. I don't know, would you agree with that definition? I think that's a pretty broad definition of socialism.
I'm not sure because I'm not sure about that. I think that there might be this idea of equal outcome. And it's not about just the floor. It's also about taking everything from an Elon Musk.
Okay. Yeah. So
I think it's two-sided. I think it's
right. You have a natural
but then they
antagonist.
Get to be up here.
You have a natural antagonist. Right. Which is the people who have the most wealth. I think that the way I understand like communism versus socialism, and this isn't the lines aren't exact, but communism in my understanding is like the state owns everything. Whereas socialists will be like, okay, we're going to intervene with private wealth will continue to exist, but we are going to intervene to make sure that some of that wealth reaches the lesser off in society. That being said, I'm curious if I wrote this down in my notes. What did I write? Oh, yeah. So, is it feasible to solve the cost of living for rent in New York through market means? Let me add some context to that. New York, London, other major global cities like this are famous for having property bought as investment properties, some of which are
Right.
never rented out because they can hold and appreciate value. There's usually a large volume of construction of luxury properties. So a lot of the housing units are never going to be occupied and are just used for speculative investment and as financial instruments, essentially.
Yes.
Is there something unique then about New York that demands a stronger intervention versus, say, Kansas City, where if the rent was too high, you have room to build more housing, you build the housing, rent comes down? Or maybe Austin, which is an actual example of a city where rent prices have decreased just because they built more housing. Like, is
A
that
lot of Florida,
possible
a
to
lot
do
of
in New
Florida's
York?
like that. A lot of Florida's like that as well. They've had a recent real estate quote unquote crash. It's not a crash, but like they didn't see nearly the way that a lot of these places in other parts of the country saw, like, 2xing of the real estate, 30, 40, 50% increases over the last basically 3 to 4 to 5 years. No. Um, I am not an expert on New York City and the surrounding areas, but I will say this. You can definitely build more things there. They are not like built out. So I will just say that.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, can you build things there under their current regulatory regime? I'm not sure. Can you build things there given the fact that they've become these like havens for international investments that are obviously like problems? I mean, I think a lot of that stuff is like been pretty definitively shown to be illicit money. I mean, there could be some pretty interesting things if they actually went in and investigated who owned a lot of these things. Now, there's all sorts of issues that start to come up with this. And this is where life gets complex, right? But, you know, is it going to be a purely market driven force? I think it could be if you removed all of these other things that end up going through here. Are you going to remove all the historical preservation stuff where it's like, hey, this church is 150 years old, but like, it has a great lot, this, that, and the other. We could house 1,500 people in this space if we got rid of this church and no one goes to the church. These are the choices that you're going to have to start to make. Okay, do we want to build buildings that are not as energy efficient because they take more time to build, they take more resources to build. We're just trying to like put people up. If you look at Singapore, I know I'm a Singapore fanboy, but 80%, something like that, of all the housing is owned by the government. But they have actually a system there that makes sense, so the people are incentivized to take care of their stuff. I think coming up with solutions is actually very hard. So I'm not trying to say that the solutions are easy, but chopping down a wrong solution that's being put forth is actually pretty easy. And all that these people are doing right now are proposing bad solutions. So
Yeah, this actually made me think of something I jotted down, which I just call the car engine analogy. I
oh
think that in the United States, the for whatever reason, people want to go all market or all state. They're like,
yeah,
well, all the answers need to come from the market. No, all the answers need to come from the state. Like, we need to pass
right,
laws. No, we need private market to figure it out. Uh, when you look at a car engine, you don't have two types of engines, like an engine that's efficient and an engine that's fast. You can actually, by adjusting the smaller elements of components of an engine and design parameters, you can reach different balances of efficient and fast,
mm-hmm.
right? Or I'm sure there's other things you can optimize for, but those are two examples that I could think of. There are not just two types of car engines. There are many, many types of car engines. And actually, each car engine, through the optimizations that are made, are kind of unique. Economies are like that. If you go through the world, every economy and every economic regime is defined by a unique combination of interactions between the state and the market. And either one cannot exist in a vacuum. The market can't exist without the state because contracts need to be enforced.
Correct.
The market without the state is just warlordism. It's just transactions under warlordism.
Yeah.
The
Which is
state
bad
without-
for everyone.
Yes. The state without the market is just Soviet Gazplan.
Yes. Which is bad for
which is
everyone.
bad for everyone. It sucks.
Yeah.
And so that is why every economic system in the world is some kind of negotiated balance between the state and the market. I think about Teddy Roosevelt quite a bit and the trust busting crusade of Teddy Roosevelt. The reason I think about that is because I think a lot of businesses I think this example helps break out of this reductive capitalist socialist binary that's so often used in American political discourse. Was Teddy Roosevelt a socialist? Was he a capitalist? What Teddy Roosevelt was trying to accomplish, this is my understanding of it, is he believed that a free market needed competition, and the trusts that were busted in the trust busting was making capitalism better because it was making the market more competitive, right? Is that capitalist or is it communist, right? That's reductive. It is fine-tuning the engine of your economy to make it perform in a way that is more beneficial for you. The reason I say all of that is someone like Mamdani probably doesn't want to get rid of a market economy. They just want to rebuild the engine in a way that is more advantageous for their goals, which is, I'm sure in the political messaging is to make New York more affordable for low income people, which there are a lot of who are under immense pressure.
So I don't know the man's heart, but I am not sure I agree with you anymore with a lot of those democratic socialists and socialists. I'm not sure I agree with you. I don't think they just want to rebuild these engines. I think they fundamentally see the world very differently. And I don't think they want prosperity. I really don't. I think it goes back to the sailing cargo ship. If you were to actually present them with a solution that involved actually solving the problem, but they personally became irrelevant, they wouldn't support it. No way. And I think that there's a lot of kind of leaders who are like that. And I think a lot of this latest wave is that. And the reason I say that is because read a book, man. Read a book. Your solutions don't work. They're going to result in disaster. But what they're also going to result in is some favorites. They're going to result in, you're going to pick favorites. They're going to result in you having this, reverence, and you have all this energy behind you, and they sound so good. They only sound good to people who don't understand anything about history or the way these examples work. So that's why I don't think they actually do care. I don't.
I think if you look at the economic pyramid of a city like New York City, the widest part of the pyramid is the bottom, where you have people who are not making a lot of money. I think
those people don't even live in Manhattan anymore, man. They can't afford it.
I think
none of those people even live there.
Some of them probably are being pushed further and further out of the city limits. I don't know. I think it's very easy to make a case to those people that the people at the top of that pyramid are your enemy. And this is like what you were saying, the part of socialism was like, I don't know if they want to rebuild the engine. I don't know if they want to pick, do a market, still have any kind of market solutions or whatnot. You can run a whole campaign on just attacking the wealthy. Just being,
they do.
Like, these
All
guys
these people
are predators preying on you, and we need to attack them. They may be right in some instances. There are definitely predatory people out there that accumulate a lot of wealth, but a lot of people that are not guilty of that will be caught in the crossfire. You may create some really toxic incentives, and then all of a sudden, your city may not be the most important city in the world anymore, in the case of New York. But it is very easy to make that narrative and to make that pitch, because a lot of people are very financially pinched and are only becoming more so, especially in these cities where real estate is where they're global cities and real estate is coveted. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more politicians like this in California and in every major city in the United States.
They're definitely coming.
The people at the bottom are just unable to keep up with the cost of living. And anyone who's like, I'm going to fix this for you. How? Yeah. Well, I'm going to go to these rich assholes and take their shit and give it to you. It's an easy pitch to make.
This is why I say that they actually don't care, because these are smart people. They tend to be. I think there are some exceptions where some of these people that are very in the public eye actually aren't that smart. But I think most of them are actually quite intelligent, regardless of how silly the sound bites make them off to be. And so I just really believe that they cannot care if they're not looking into this at a deeper level. If you cannot understand that inflationary spending at the federal level is one of the main drivers of this stuff, then you don't care, because it's not hard to understand that. If you don't understand that having a massive illegal immigration surge into the country and driving up the demand for housing in all these places, which was one component of many components. If you don't understand that has an effect, then you're just not being honest, and then you don't care. And I think there's a lot of that, man.
How do you solve that at the mayoral level, though? I mean, because and again, I know we started this off saying Democrats disambiguating Democrats from Democratic Socialists. We haven't even talked about that disambiguation yet.
You can start by stopping all this rhetoric of any type of federal immigration enforcement is based in race and all that. Those guys have all been saying that. I've seen this guy say stuff like that before. We need to stop ICE. Like, we are a sanctuary city, those kind of things. That's an example of what you cannot do. You can say, hey, if you're here illegally in New York City, like, we are going to be cooperating with the enforcement agencies, and we're going to be beginning to remove you. And we're going to be taking this on a case-by-case basis, and we're going to figure this out. But we're going to start doing that. And the problem, though, is there's so much psyop going on at the national level that has somehow become a racist or anti-American position, which is complete anathema to me. It makes no sense to me how we can do that. It's like, if you really want to run a socialist country, I'm almost even I could be convinced of that. But like, then we also need to figure out, like, we can't be having people paid not to work. We can't we can't do that. We cannot have. I know these people personally. I don't want to get into it, but just like I know many people who in my family and extended family of mine who have no interest in working. They're getting certain benefits from the government. They are of a sufficient enough nature that that life is fine. Like, we can't have able-bodied men in their mid to late 20s not giving a shit and not going to get jobs, like, and then live in a socialist country. But that's, I think, inevitably what's going to happen with a lot of these policies.
Yeah,
like, you and I have both gone periods without work, and it is depressing. It's demoralizing. You feel worthless, and all you want to do is have a job and keep working. Mm-hmm. We've created a huge part of our society and our culture that, like, doesn't feel that I want to go get a job. They're like, I'm good.
Well, let me add to that really quick, and I think this kind of goes to this disambiguation between Democratic Socialists and the classic Democrats. This system that we've created, where many, as you said, able-bodied men, women, whatever, are not working, was created without Democratic Socialists ever being in power at the national level.
100%.
I think Mamdani, there's like a handful, maybe less than 10 Democratic Socialists that have ever had any serious power in elected office.
I think you're right.
Sanders is in AOC. There's like a tiny fraction of them at the federal level this system that we are living in right now was created by the classic Democrats and the classic Republicans in conjunction with each other. And there are like conservative coded ways to become a welfare queen, if you will, right?
100%. You're 100%
file for
right.
disability. You can fly the biggest MAGA flag you want in front of your house and live off disability and Social Security checks. And you know what I mean? So there's
crazy.
a big disconnect between the mainstream political narratives and how things are actually working. Like there's a lot of people that will vote Republican that benefit from welfare. And there's a lot of people that vote Democrat that, are really would benefit from, say, like less regulation that would allow housing to be built and would maybe allow them to actually live in the Bay, right? Say if they work there and need to commute like 2 hours to work or whatnot.
Yeah. Maybe the final thing I'll just quickly say on this segment before we move on, and I just completely agree with you, and I think that that's something interesting that I think we hope to talk to on this podcast a lot, because it's like a great example is just Social Security. I mean, all these Republicans will want it, and they'll say it's their money, but it's not, because they're all like, why is it going to go bankrupt in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever they say? It's like, because it's not. It's stealing from the younger generation. And if people were really honest and the Republicans were actually like, yeah, we want to go back to like less government, they would have an opt-out option where the younger generation could just opt out. They'd be like, yeah, I don't want to play that game.
Yeah.
Don't sign me up. I
won't collect the checks, but I won't pay the taxes. So
exactly. And so, yeah.
And yeah, are you familiar with the concept of the Overton window? This is the last thing I'll say before we can. Yeah. So
I'm very familiar.
When Social Security was being coined in the Great Depression by Roosevelt, there were a lot of people like Prescott Bush, George W.'s grandfather, who wanted to coup the government because they're like, this is socialism. It was, right? It was socialism, but it became part of the American social contract. Were there reasons for this happening? Yes. Like poverty, the poverty of the Great Depression meant that there were not just everyone, but old folks who couldn't work anymore, who were literally just starving to death.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, well, in a polite society, we need a way for this to not happen. And the Overton window has shifted where that socialist idea is not even considered socialist by most conservatives who would, who hear whoever screaming about socialism on Fox News.
Right.
The Overton window, it shifts, man. That's what the Overton window does. And so yesterday's socialism is today's, American right. Like birthright of, classic conservative American.
Yeah. Well, I think the external factors have changed as well. So, for example, I believe the average age expectancy when Social Security was first passed was actually below the recipient age. I believe it was 62.
Yeah, it's a lot higher.
That is 65, right? True. And there is something quite different in the sense of, like you said, the Overton window has shifted in terms of what is Social Security. It was literally, like you said, to prevent seniors from starving to death or living in abject squalor to a level that was like quite reprehensible and repulsive to most Americans, rightfully. It did not mean what it means today, where seniors who have 3, 4, 5 homes are still collecting full benefits and getting free gym memberships in many situations and getting these completely outrageous benefits that we just can't afford. And it's also not meant for people who have, I'll just say it, I guess, fake disabilities. There's a lot of people with fake disabilities. And I think that kind of speaks to the culture of what's shifted. That, what do people consider to be proper? What is right and wrong with working and all these things? We've just gotten soft, man. All this stuff, we've gotten soft.
I just thought about something. One of these episodes, we're going to have to talk about corporate socialism, because corporate persons get a little socialist love as well. But
we got to get rid of all this stuff. But that goes back to goes back to the ship. That's a subsidy from the government. That's a ship socialism.
The French government, man, they.
I
you don't have to
guarantee
worry
some
about
U.S.
them. Let them
dollars
do
found
their
their way
thing.
in that ship. You can't
They
tell
snuck
me
their
some
way in.
U.S. even if you didn't. Okay, this is the level that like I kind of think about the way that capital flows and the way that force and power and influence flow. The only reason France and a lot of these countries can afford to do all that is because basically the United States foots their security bills. Oh, and we also foot a lot of their medical bills when it comes to like research and development for a lot of these advanced treatments. So, they have more money to play around with sailing cargo ships. You know what I mean? So, there's many ways to look at this at many different analyses.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, we could obviously go a lot deeper on this topic, but I would say in summary, these terms are not what they necessarily say they are, and it's worth digging into like what is a Democrat, what is a democratic socialist, what is a Republican, because what you say and how you act, there can be a bit of a mismatch, and I think they're all a lot more similar than they actually say they are. Anyways.
100%. 100%.